Got to click.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Bitcoin 15, episode 4. I am your host, Peter, and always joined by my co-host, Peter. How was that? That's pretty good. Kick it over to Peter Christensen Gonzo for the price.
Yeah, so for the week, we opened around 35,700. As of now, we're sitting around low 32,000s as of when I checked this morning. It's a really volatile week. We saw it get up to as high as nearly 38,000 and then dip down to just below 29,000. So $9,000 difference for the week. And I just think we need to be prepared for these super volatile weeks in the year 2021 when the prices are this high. It's always been a volatile asset. So a $9,000 swing, people, let's get used to it. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, $9,000 swing is right. Volatile, but at the same time, as hodlers or as people who kind of keep wanting to scoop chips, I kept going. Keep going, just keep going. I'm ready for it. This isn't too bad.
Going down,
that is. And but even the 9,000 swing, like not everybody is Michael Saylor, right? Not everybody's doing these huge bulk buys. In the grand scheme of things, a couple $100, it's not that much difference, right? Like when you were just buying you're stacking sats, or stats, I should say.
No, you said it right the first time.
Oh, sats. There we go. I was like, in my head, it sounded funny. But even $9,000 really isn't that big of a swing when if you just do, some low volume, low currency buys. So I was happy to see. I'm always happy if it doesn't dip completely down below 20, and I think they'll kind of come up organically in some of these conversations later. So we can just go right into the good that we discussed. The good for the week, from our perspectives, and we'd love to hear anybody's rebuttals in the comments below. But there's a couple of them that stand out. So kind of a quick hitter one was the Prime Minister, or former Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper. He listed Bitcoin as maybe one of the future assets to get a hold of, because he does recognize the U.S. market, the USD, might fail or might be volatile. It still sees it as a currency that will be backed, and they'll still have a very strong presence globally. But he did recognize that the economies might fall. Again, just kind of a throwaway one, but I thought it was important because he does even say, as an investor, he doesn't really know what Bitcoin represents, and I think that's kind of true for a lot of people who are investing still in Bitcoin are getting into it. Another two that I really want to hit on with you and get your feedback on is Sequoia Holdings let employees get paid in some cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum. Ties back to episode 1 that we discussed. And the one that I really want to get your feedback on is MicroStrategy is really buying into the dip and buying up almost 10 million in Bitcoin with Michael Saylor. So throwing those headlines over to you. What are your thoughts on kind of those big three?
Well, so yeah, I think the Stephen Harper story, we talked about this. I don't know how big a news it is. However, it is just encouraging to see more people that, he recognized that he doesn't think like the dollar's going away, but that Bitcoin could become just an alternative to gold, or maybe an alternative to the US dollar as a world reserve currency. But he just doesn't really see it like pushing it out completely. But either way, more widespread acceptance potentially there. The Sequoia Holdings story, like you said, calling back to episode 1, our kind of big story we liked there was Russell Okung, the professional football player, getting paid by the Carolina Panthers in Bitcoin. We wondered, when is this going to happen for regular people like you and me? Well, it's probably a long ways off, but a story like this is a software development services provider. So just regular people having the option to get paid in Bitcoin or, Ethereum instead if they prefer. I don't know how they're doing that. Again, just like we wondered back in episode 1, what service are they going through to do that? Do they hold Bitcoin to just pay them directly in that, or they convert it with something like Strike, like Russell Okung did? I have no idea. Unfortunately, the Reuters story didn't include those details, but more that's going to keep coming, and we're going to keep reporting it every time, sharing that news on this channel when we get the chance, because we think that's really cool. The MicroStrategy story, yeah, Michael Saylor has come out as, this billionaire or whatever that's people wouldn't have foreseen maybe as someone who'd be a Bitcoiner, and is now just seems like at every chance, whenever there's a dip, he's going to take advantage of it. And we know he's not the only one who's doing that. There's a lot of people in big companies or hedge funds or whatever, that financial institutions, that are going to do this whenever there's a buying opportunity in their eyes. And that's good news for people like you and me who maybe worry. Now, yeah, you said earlier you like seeing it go down, so we have more buying opportunities.
Yeah.
To a point, but at the same time, you don't want it to crash completely. Yeah. And right now, my take on this is we'll dip into the 20,000s plenty often in 2021, I think. But I think we're starting to see like an actual like firm bedrock being formed, where whenever it dips into the 20s, big whales, so to speak, come in and buy up a lot of available Bitcoin. And it's just going to prevent it from ever really crashing below 20,000 ever again, is my prediction. I've been wrong plenty of times before. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with that story.
Funny you should say just the 20,000, because like I see it as just high 29, 28, right? Like the low 20s. Can you imagine for sure. You can always go back to zero. We always say this, like, right.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have such big heavy hitters buying $100 million at a time, and then there's even their stock rising on NASDAQ, like MicroStrategy stock going up, what is it, 300%, 200% since August, 320% since August. The company's stock is going up like crazy. And when they initially bought, it was in August, their stock was $120 a share. Now it's over 500. I just looked, it was at 580. It's markets are closed right now, but that's a pretty big jump in a couple months since August 2020.
And that almost aligns perfectly with how much the percentage that Bitcoin's gone up in the same time. So
exactly.
And it sounds like there's something there.
And with him having a big conference coming up on the 3rd and 4th of February, where CEOs, CFOs, directors, other financial institutions, they're kind of opening up their playbook and saying, like, this is what we're doing. This, like, from a legality standpoint, this is how we're kind of publishing our numbers, and as a company recognizing this and moving to Bitcoin. That might just, Gemini is going to be there, Coinbase. Those are some of the ones that people will recognize if they listen to this YouTube channel. That's why when you say the bottom at 20, it's like, 28, 29. Like,
yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, people, especially regular people like us too, besides the whales, like as soon as we see that a 2 at the start of the number, now you get excited, and it doesn't stay below 30 for very long. So I was being more conservative by saying I really don't see it ever dipping below 20, but yeah, it's probably closer to 25, 26, somewhere in there is the true bottom, but we'll see. Bitcoin, we know it's volatile. We'll never know what's going to happen for sure. But anyhow, I think moving on, kind of the story of the week that kind of caused that crash, that caused it to dip below 30, at least this is what a lot of people are speculating, was there was kind of fear around these rumors that were reported that there was a double spend. And people might be like, what are you talking about with a double spend? So I'll come up with an analogy here. Let's say I'm going to pay Beckstrand here 1 Bitcoin for a car. Say you're selling a car to me. I'm going to pay you a Bitcoin for a car, and then, but I want to buy some other guy's car too. And so I send you the Bitcoin, you're right there, you hand me the keys, and there's someone else selling a car. I quickly send before this, because we know Bitcoin is a little slow with processing transactions. Before you get the full confirmation, you just give me the keys and you're like, have fun with it. And then I quickly turn around and spend that same Bitcoin on something else. Let's say it's another car or something to someone else. And then he gives me the keys, and then I just drive off in my cars. I guess I brought someone else to help me drive away. This analogy's falling apart. But then one of you realizes only one of you ended up with the Bitcoin. Well, that would be a double spend, right? But that's not actually, because the ledger of here I try to do the computer science, and I'm struggling here. But the way the network works is, the blockchain, you mine a block, it gets added to the ledger. Everyone recognizes that because the whole network sees it as the same. Well, sometimes if two miners are competing to mine the same block at the same time, there can be a small little fork, and then there'll be competing blocks or competing chains, and eventually after just a few more minutes or whatever, maybe it's only seconds, I forget, but one block will emerge, and that'll be the one that's accepted, and that's the only Bitcoin that would be spent. So if the network recognized eventually that, and they accepted the chain that mined the block that recognized the transaction from me to you first, and then they keep building on that one, then the one to the other guy doesn't count. Well, he should have waited till it says in the white paper, the 6th confirmation or whatever. And then he would know without certainty that the Bitcoin has in fact been transferred to him. So don't let the guy drive off with the car before that 6th confirmation. That's not very realistic. Most of these things are going to be more like online transactions, and maybe you bought something, maybe you exchanged it for a fiat currency instead. But as long as, I guess, the moral of the story here is, I got into the weeds there and I probably shouldn't have. The moral of the story, though, is that Bitcoin can't actually be double spent. There's just these moments where two separate miners are competing to mine at the same time, and it causes these little splits, but it gets corrected soon enough, and no one's gonna. This is not proof that Bitcoin is a failure and can't work. These things actually happen all the time. It's just that one happened to happen this week. Someone who's a Bitcoin hater, tried to hype it up and report it. Maybe there's someone who's bigger into a different an altcoin or something and wants to tear down Bitcoin. Who knows? Maybe there's someone who just hates crypto altogether. I don't know. But that caused like a little bit of a panic, or people call it FUD. That caused the price to crash a little bit. So that didn't go as well as I thought trying to explain that. But do your own research on it. There's much smarter people than me that explain what happened there. The moral of the story, like I said, is there's really nothing to fear over this. This is actually a pretty normal thing.
Yeah, I think thanks for explaining it. I think it does help. For all the people who are listening, I think it does. I think it will help. And I think if you like we always do, we'll throw the headlines into the comments. But yeah, I think you're right. It does. It's like the bad of the week, but it's actually kind of a good, because it's like, well, no, it worked the way it's supposed to. We just jump to this conclusion that we found the chink in the armor. It's not as good as we thought it was. And it's like, well, no, go back, kind of segue into like the interesting comment or column of the week with Bitcoin as a faith-based asset. No, go back and read the white papers by the god of Bitcoin here. This
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah, this will happen. This does happen, and the confirmation is 6. We got it, and now we're going. Now it's in the past. So, thanks for breaking that down. Do you want to talk about, as we kind of have the last couple minutes here, the last couple of seconds? Do you want to talk about the Bitcoin as a faith-based, and because I know that was
so that was just like another interesting headline we saw. Someone on Bloomberg wrote this article saying, hey, if you don't understand Bitcoin, don't worry about it. Just think of it as a faith-based asset. And he kind of wrote this silly article, I think, as a way of dismissing Bitcoin, to say, oh, Satoshi's the god, your sacred text is the white paper. You have your holy holidays, like instead of Christmas or Easter, you have the halving every 4 years.
And Pizza Day.
In Pizza Day, if you don't know what that is, I guess just look it up. I'm trying to save time here. those of us who are hodlers, we're the true, or Bitcoiners, we're the true believers. Those, the no coiners, people who don't have any Bitcoin, are the lost, the sinners. I think I thought it was a silly article, but I thought a lot of people would read it, so we address it. Because Tyler Winklevoss, if you don't know who that is, he's famous for being in the movie The Social Network. If you're not familiar with that,
played by Army Hammer, I believe his name is, which is like the weirdest name.
Yeah, he played. Yeah, he did play both him and his brother, the twins that attest, or they claim that they started Facebook, and Zuckerberg
spoiler alert
had a feud with them. So anyhow, but the Winklevosses have moved on, and they're big on Bitcoin. They founded Gemini, which is it's one of the largest, most trusted crypto exchanges. Beckstrand actually mentioned them earlier in the episode here. And his response to the silly article was, quote, "All money is faith-based. The difference with Bitcoin is that you place your faith in math, not central bankers." And end quote. So I'm with him on that. Yes, there's a little more to it than just simply saying math is what you're putting your faith in. You have to put faith in people accepting it as a store of value and a medium of exchange, and that it's, but the faith in math part is, mathematically, it is a scarce asset. There will only ever be 21 million of them. Whereas if you're putting your faith in central bankers, if in the dollar, other fiat currencies, you're putting your faith that the central bankers won't print it into oblivion. And we've covered that on past episodes. We really think that's what's going on right now. And it's only going to, as we try to emerge from COVID, it's just going to keep happening in 2021, because we're not quite through this whole thing. And I mean, the next stimulus is coming, right? So
yeah,
that was his response, which I thought was a really well thought out response. Do you have a response to, are we in a cult? Are we in a crazy religion? Because that's what they're saying.
That way. It sometimes feels that way, because I mean, and we're even late to the game, right? Like we're not early adopters of this new faith. we're early. We're in our own eyes, we're not early enough.
That's how we see it. But some of the hardcore people say, "Oh, don't worry, you're still in early if you get in now." Yeah. And that's the part that sounds sketchy to some people, like it's a Ponzi scheme or in a cult or something. But yeah, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was going to say is that the non-coiners it seems like we're always trying to convert people, and it's not like there's anything for us to gain out of it. Like we don't get money. Being in sales, it's like I don't get any recognized revenue if you buy it, except for the fact that theoretically the price would go up if everybody started buying into it, right? Scarcity, supply and demand, math. But it sometimes feels that way because there are people who just have I'm late to the table. I don't even want to think about it. Oh, I see it and I don't want to think about it. And
I don't want to buy now because it's too expensive. I should have got in on earlier. I missed the boat.
Yeah. So I see it. But you're right. It feels like it's throwing shade. If we're going to use, 2020 terms or 2021 terms, as the kids say. But it was a good reply. And it just goes back to, as we wrap up the Bitcoin 15 here in the Bitcoin 18, almost Bitcoin 20. We'll have to rename this, I think, after a while, because we just get so good at talking.
What's in a name?
It feels like, and I forgot what I was going to say. What was I going to say? I can't remember now.
Well, I'll just say this. If you think of it, otherwise we'll wrap. But if you can say we're in a crazy cult religion, if we start standing on a corner with signs saying, instead of Jesus is coming, like the halving is coming or something like that, passing out tracts on the street corner and just like proselytizing to the masses. Like we're not on that level yet. And I don't think any Bitcoiners are, but
no, definitely. We're definitely not there. That's all I have. If that's all you have, I think it's a good time to wrap it up.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you in a week.
See you next week.